The wind howled like a wounded animal as Isaac Morrison stumbled through the snow toward his barn, his lantern barely cutting through the white fury that surrounded him. February in Wyoming Territory had always been brutal, but the blizzard of 1883 was testing even his considerable endurance, and he had lived through more than his fair share of harsh winters in the 2 years since he had settled his modest ranch just outside White Pine. The cold bit through his heavy coat as he pushed against the barn door, his cattle lowing anxiously inside, their warm breath creating small clouds in the frigid air. What he found huddled in the corner behind a hay bale made him freeze mid-step. A woman, her dark hair matted with snow and ice, her lips blue from the cold, trembled violently as she tried to make herself smaller against the wooden planks. Her dress was torn in several places, completely inadequate for the weather that raged outside, and her eyes held a wild terror that made Isaac's heart clench. She looked at him like a cornered animal, ready to bolt despite the fact that running into the storm would mean certain death. "Easy now," Isaac said softly, setting the lantern down slowly and raising his hands to show he meant no harm. "I am not going to hurt you. You are safe here." The woman's teeth chattered so violently she could barely speak, but she managed to shake her head. "Please," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "Do not send me back. I would rather die out there than go back." Isaac did not ask questions. Not yet. The woman was clearly in immediate danger from the cold, and every second counted. He quickly removed his heavy coat and approached her slowly, the way he would approach a frightened horse. She flinched when he got close, but she did not run. Up close, he could see she was younger than he had first thought, probably no more than 20 or 21, with delicate features that were currently pinched with cold and fear. "I am going to help you get warm," he said firmly but gently. "Then we can talk about everything else." He wrapped his coat around her shoulders, but it was not enough. Her whole body was ice cold, her fingers nearly white. Isaac looked around the barn and cursed under his breath. His only blanket, the thick wool one he kept for emergencies, was draped over the stall rail where he had left it that morning after one of his horses had needed extra warmth. He grabbed it without hesitation and wrapped it around the woman, lifting her carefully into his arms. She was lighter than he expected, too light, and he wondered when she had last eaten a proper meal. "We need to get you inside," he said. "The barn is too cold tonight." "No," she protested weakly, trying to pull away. "If someone sees me, if he finds me." "No one is going anywhere in this storm," Isaac assured her. "And no one is taking you anywhere you do not want to go. I give you my word." Something in his tone must have convinced her, because she stopped struggling and allowed him to carry her across the snow-covered yard to his small ranch house. The wind tried to tear them both away, and by the time Isaac kicked the door open, both of them were covered in fresh snow. He set her down in the chair closest to the fireplace and immediately set about building up the fire until it roared with heat. The woman clutched the blanket around herself, her dark eyes following Isaac's every movement with a mixture of wariness and desperate hope. Now that they were in the light, he could see bruises on her wrists and a fading mark on her cheek. Anger flared in his chest, but he kept his expression calm. Whoever had hurt this woman, they were not here now, and she needed help more than he needed to give in to his protective fury. "I am Isaac Morrison," he said, moving to the kitchen area to put a kettle on the stove. "This is my ranch. You are about 5 miles outside White Pine, Wyoming Territory. What is your name?" The woman hesitated, then whispered, "Fiona. Fiona Walsh." "Well, Miss Walsh, when is the last time you ate something?" Fiona's eyes dropped to her lap. "Yesterday morning, I think. Maybe the day before. I have been walking for a long time." Isaac pulled out bread, cheese, and some leftover stew from the night before. As he heated the stew, he kept talking, his voice low and soothing. I have been ranching here for 2 years now. It is just me and the animals. Gets lonely sometimes, but it is honest work, peaceful mostly. You live alone? Fiona asked, her voice still shaky but gaining some strength as the warmth from the fire began to thaw her frozen limbs. Yes, madam. My parents and sister are back in Kansas. I came out here looking for a fresh start, some land of my own. He poured hot water into a cup and added some precious tea leaves. Here, drink this slowly. It will help warm you from the inside. Fiona accepted the cup with trembling hands, and Isaac noticed the raw marks on her wrists more clearly. They looked like rope burns. His jaw tightened, but he said nothing. She would tell him when she was ready, or she would not. Either way, he would not force the story from her. After she had sipped half the tea, he brought her the bowl of stew and a thick slice of bread. Fiona ate slowly at first, then faster, like someone who had been deprived of food for too long. Isaac busied himself checking the windows, making sure they were sealed against the storm, giving her privacy to eat without being watched. The storm should blow through by tomorrow afternoon, he said, looking out at the white fury beyond the glass. But the roads will not be passable for at least another day after that. You are welcome to stay here as long as you need. Fiona set down the empty bowl, her eyes suddenly bright with tears. You do not even know me. You do not know what I have done or why I was out there. Isaac turned to face her fully. I know you were running from something or someone. I know you would rather have died in that blizzard than face whatever you were running from. And I know that anyone who would hurt a woman the way someone clearly hurt you does not deserve to have her back. A tear rolled down Fiona's cheek. My husband, she said quietly. Or he was my husband. We were married 3 months ago in Denver. He seemed like a good man, respectable, a merchant with a successful business, but after the wedding he changed, or maybe he just stopped pretending. Isaac pulled up another chair and sat down, giving her his full attention. You do not have to tell me if you are not ready. No, Fiona said, shaking her head. You deserve to know what kind of trouble you might be bringing on yourself by helping me. Gerald Thornton is his name. He owns a mercantile in Denver, but his real money comes from other ventures. Gambling, lending money at terrible rates, collecting debts. He is friendly with the sheriff there and several of the town council members. When I tried to leave the first time, they brought me right back to him. The first time? Isaac asked quietly. I tried 3 times, Fiona admitted, her voice breaking. The first time I made it to the edge of town before the sheriff found me and dragged me back. Gerald beat me so badly I could not walk for a week. The second time I got as far as Colorado Springs, but he had sent telegrams ahead. Someone there recognized me from the description and turned me in for the reward he had posted. He said I was mentally unstable, that I needed to be returned to my husband for my own safety. Isaac's hands clenched into fists, but he kept his voice level. And this time I was smarter. I stole money from his safe, enough for a train ticket and a little extra. I cut my hair shorter and wore my plainest dress. I told the ticket agent I was traveling to visit my sick mother in Cheyenne. But somewhere along the way, I think someone recognized me or became suspicious. When the train stopped in White Pine for water, I saw a man talking to the conductor and pointing at me, so I ran. That was yesterday, Isaac asked. Fiona nodded. Yesterday morning, I hid in an old mining shack I found, but it was so cold. When the storm started getting worse, I knew I needed better shelter. I saw your barn from the road and thought maybe I could hide there until the storm passed, then keep moving north. North to where? I do not know, Fiona admitted. Somewhere he cannot find me. Somewhere I can start over with a new name, a new life. Isaac stood and walked to the window, watching the snow pile up against the fence posts. Running will not work forever. Men like that, they do not give up easy. And with money and connections, he can chase you across the whole country if he wants. Then what am I supposed to do? Fiona asked, despair creeping into her voice. I cannot go back. I would rather be dead than go back to him. You are not going back, Isaac said firmly, turning to face her. And you are not going to die either. We are going to figure this out, but first, you need to rest. You are exhausted and half frozen. The guest room is through that door. It is small, but the bed is clean and there are extra blankets. Fiona stood on shaky legs, still wrapped in Isaac's blanket. Why are you helping me? You could get in terrible trouble for this. Isaac met her eyes steadily. Because it is the right thing to do, and because no one should have to live in fear like that. He paused, then added more softly, my sister was married to a man who hurt her. By the time my parents and I realized what was happening, she had already lost too much of herself to his cruelty. We got her away from him eventually, but it took too long. I swore then that if I ever had the chance to help someone in that situation, I would not hesitate. Fresh tears spilled down Fiona's cheeks. Is your sister safe now? She is. She lives with my parents in Kansas. She has started smiling again, though it took a long time. She is stronger than she knows. I do not feel very strong, Fiona whispered. Strength is not about never being afraid, Isaac said gently. It is about being terrified and doing what needs to be done anyway. You walked through a blizzard rather than give up. That takes more courage than most people will ever have to find. Fiona looked at him for a long moment, something shifting in her expression. Then she nodded and made her way to the guest room. Isaac waited until he heard the door close before he let out a long breath and ran his hands through his dark hair. What had he gotten himself into? Harboring another man's wife, even an abusive husband, could bring serious trouble. But as he banked the fire for the night and made himself a makeshift bed on the floor near the fireplace, giving Fiona the blanket and his coat for extra warmth, he knew he would make the same choice again without hesitation. The storm raged through the night and into the next day. Isaac woke early, as he always did, and carefully stepped around his makeshift bed to check on the animals in the barn. The snow had piled up nearly 3 feet in some places, and the wind was still howling, though not quite as fiercely as before. His cattle and horses were fine, huddled together for warmth, and he made sure they had enough feed and water before trudging back through the snow to the house. Fiona was awake when he returned, standing by the window and looking out at the white landscape. She had found one of his old shirts and a pair of work pants, both far too large for her but warmer than her torn dress. She had rolled up the sleeves and cuffs and cinched the pants with a piece of rope. I hope you do not mind, she said, gesturing at the clothes. My dress was ruined. Keep them, Isaac said, stomping the snow off his boots. They fit you better than they fit me anyway. That was not remotely true, but it earned him a small smile from Fiona, the first he had seen. It transformed her face, making her look younger and lighting up her dark eyes. Isaac felt something shift in his chest, a warmth that had nothing to do with the fire. I made coffee, Fiona offered, or I tried to. I am not sure if I did it right. Isaac poured himself a cup and took a sip. It was strong enough to strip paint, but he smiled. It is perfect, thank you. They ate a simple breakfast of eggs and bread, falling into an easy conversation about nothing important. Fiona asked about the ranch, and Isaac found himself telling her about his plans to expand the herd, maybe build a larger barn in the spring. She told him about growing up in Boston, the youngest of 4 daughters, how she had always loved to read and had dreamed of becoming a teacher. What stopped you? Isaac asked. Fiona's expression darkened. My father's business failed. We lost everything. When Gerald came along, offering marriage and security, my parents encouraged the match. They thought they were setting me up for a good life. She laughed bitterly. I thought I was doing the right thing, taking care of my family by marrying well. I did not realize I was trading my future for their present. That is not your fault, Isaac said firmly. You could not have known what kind of man he truly was. Could I not? Fiona challenged. There were signs even before the wedding. The way he spoke to servants, the coldness in his eyes when he thought no one was watching. But I told myself I was imagining things, that I was being ungrateful. We see what we want to see sometimes, Isaac said, especially when the alternative is too frightening to consider. They spent the day inside while the storm continued its assault on the small ranch. Isaac taught Fiona how to play checkers, using buttons and a board he drew on paper. She won the third game, crowing with delight, and Isaac found himself laughing more than he had in months. There was something about Fiona, a resilience beneath her fear, a spark that had not been completely extinguished by her terrible marriage. As evening fell and they prepared a simple dinner together, working side by side in the small kitchen, Isaac realized how much he had missed having someone to talk to. The isolation of ranch life suited him in many ways, but there were times when the silence became oppressive. Having Fiona there, hearing her voice, seeing her smile, it felt right in a way he had not expected. That night, after Fiona had gone to bed, Isaac sat by the fire and tried to think practically about the situation. He could not keep her hidden forever. Eventually, she would need to make a life for herself somewhere, somehow. But the thought of her leaving, of sending her off into an uncertain future alone, made his chest ache. He barely knew this woman, yet already he felt a fierce protectiveness toward her that went beyond simple human decency. The storm broke the next morning, leaving behind a world transformed by snow. The sun came out, blindingly bright against the white landscape, and the temperature began to rise slightly. Isaac knew the roads would still be impassable for at least another day, maybe two. He did not examine too closely why that knowledge brought him relief rather than concern. He and Fiona worked together to dig out paths to the barn and the chicken coop. She insisted on helping despite his protests, and he had to admit she was a hard worker. Her cheeks flushed pink from the cold and exertion, and she looked more alive than she had when he had first found her. "I used to love snow when I was a girl," she said, pausing to catch her breath. "My sisters and I would build snow forts and have elaborate battles. The neighbors probably thought we were wild." "Sounds like fun," Isaac said, leaning on his shovel. "Did you win, always?" Fiona said with a grin. "I was the youngest, but I was also the sneakiest. I would flank them while they were fighting each other." "Remind me never to underestimate you," Isaac said, and Fiona's grin widened. They were laughing about something inconsequential when they heard the sound of horses approaching. Fiona's face went white, and she dropped her shovel. Isaac immediately stepped in front of her, his hand moving to the rifle he had propped against the barn wall. "Get inside," he said quietly but urgently. "Stay away from the windows." Fiona did not argue. She ran for the house, and Isaac watched until she was safely inside before turning to face whoever was coming up his road. He relaxed slightly when he saw it was just Tom Hendricks, one of his nearest neighbors, riding a sturdy bay horse through the snow. "Isaac," Tom called out, raising a hand in greeting. "Wanted to check on you after that storm. Everyone else made it through all right." "I am fine," Isaac called back. "Cattle are good. Appreciate you riding out." Tom dismounted and led his horse closer. He was a weathered man in his 50s, with a thick gray beard and kind eyes. "Heard something strange in town yesterday just before the storm hit. Thought you should know about it." Isaac's stomach tightened, but he kept his expression neutral. What is that? Fellow came through on the train, asking about a missing woman. Said she might have gotten off in White Pine. Had a handbill with a drawing and everything. Said she was his wife, that she was not right in the head and needed medicine. Tom's eyes were sharp as he watched Isaac's reaction. Thing is, the description did not sit right with me. The way he talked about her, it was cold, mean. And the drawing showed a woman with scared eyes. Isaac met Tom's gaze steadily. That's so. Yeah, told him I had not seen anyone matching that description. So did most of the other folks he asked. We do not take kindly to men who hurt women, no matter what legal papers they might have. Tom paused, then added quietly, if someone needed help, needed a place to stay until things quieted down, I reckon there are folks around here who would be willing to help with that. That is good to know, Isaac said carefully. Tom nodded. The fellow left on the morning train, heading back to Denver, said he would be back with the law if anyone was found harboring his wife. But like I said, trains are not running regular right now because of the storm damage. Might be a week or more before anyone can get back here from Denver. Appreciate you letting me know, Tom. The older man mounted his horse, then looked down at Isaac with a knowing expression. You are a good man, Isaac Morrison. If you ever need help with anything at all, you just let me know. There are more folks on your side than you might think. After Tom rode away, Isaac stood in the snow for a long moment thinking. Then he went inside and found Fiona pressed against the wall beside the window, her face pale and her hands shaking. It is all right, he said gently. That was just my neighbor Tom. He came to warn us that your husband was here looking for you, but he is gone now, back to Denver. He will come back, Fiona whispered. He will bring the law and force me to go back with him. Not if we can help it, Isaac said. Tom made it clear that there are people here who will not cooperate with a man like that, and we have time to figure out a plan. Fiona looked at him with desperate hope. What kind of plan? Isaac had been thinking about this since last night, turning it over in his mind. It was risky, possibly foolish, but it was the only solution he could see that would give Fiona true protection. You need to not be his wife anymore. And the only way to do that legally is to become someone else's wife. Fiona's eyes widened. You cannot be serious. I am completely serious. If you were married to me, he would have no legal claim on you. You would be under my protection, and any attempt to take you would be kidnapping. But you do not know me, Fiona protested. We have only known each other for 2 days. You cannot just marry a stranger. Why not? Isaac asked. People get married for all kinds of reasons out here. Land, money, convenience. Why not protection? Why not friendship? That is not enough to build a marriage on, Fiona said, but her voice was wavering. Isaac stepped closer, his eyes serious. It is more than a lot of marriages start with. And Fiona, I will not lie and say I am doing this purely out of charity. These past 2 days, having you here, talking with you, laughing with you, it has made me realize how lonely I have been. I like you. I enjoy your company. And if you are willing, I think we could build something good together. But what if I cannot be a proper wife? Fiona asked, her voice breaking. What if what Gerald did to me broke something inside me? What if I can never? Hey, Isaac said gently, reaching out to take her hand. She flinched slightly but did not pull away. This would be a marriage in name only, unless and until you decided you wanted it to be something more. I would never force you, never pressure you. You would have your own room, your own space. I would just be asking you to share my name and my home. Fiona looked down at their joined hands, tears streaming down her face. Why would you do this for me? Because you deserve to be safe, Isaac said simply. Because you deserve a chance at a real life. And because, if I am being completely honest, the thought of you leaving makes me realize I do not want you to go. Fiona looked up at him, searching his face for any sign of deception or hidden motives. Whatever she saw there must have satisfied her because she slowly nodded. "All right. If you are sure, if you truly want to do this, then yes, I will marry you." Isaac felt a surge of emotion so strong it took his breath away. Relief, certainly, but also something deeper, something that felt dangerously close to joy. "We will need to do it quickly, before the roads clear and before your husband can come back. I will ride into town tomorrow and talk to the minister. We can have a small ceremony, just witnesses, nothing fancy." "I do not need fancy," Fiona said, a small smile breaking through her tears. "I just need safe." The next day, Isaac rode into White Pine while Fiona stayed at the ranch. He went straight to the small church on the edge of town and found Reverend Samuel Collins in his office, working on Sunday's sermon. The Reverend was a lean man in his 40s with sharp eyes and a reputation for speaking his mind. "Isaac Morrison," the Reverend said, standing to shake Isaac's hand. "What brings you to town on a day like this?" "I need to arrange a wedding," Isaac said without preamble. "As soon as possible." The Reverend's eyebrows rose. "Is that so? And who is the lucky lady?" "Her name is Fiona. She has been staying at my ranch since the storm." Isaac met the Reverend's eyes steadily. "You may have heard about a man who came through asking about a missing wife." Understanding dawned on the Reverend's face. "I see. And this young lady, is she entering this marriage of her own free will?" "Completely," Isaac assured him. "I have made it clear she can leave any time she wants, but she needs protection and I want to give it to her." Reverend Collins studied Isaac for a long moment, then nodded. "I heard about that man. Heard things I did not like. If this young lady is choosing you, choosing safety, then I will happily perform the ceremony." "When were you thinking?" "Tomorrow, if possible." "Tomorrow it is." "Bring her to the church at noon. I will arrange for witnesses." Isaac's next stop was the general store, where he found Mrs. Henderson behind the counter. She was a formidable woman in her 60s who knew everything that happened in White Pine and was not afraid to share her opinions. "Isaac Morrison," she said warmly. "What can I do for you today?" "I need a dress," Isaac said, feeling his cheeks heat. "Something simple but nice, for a wedding." Mrs. Henderson's face lit up. "A wedding? Well, it is about time. I was beginning to think you planned to live alone on that ranch forever." Her expression sobered slightly. "I suppose this is for the young lady who needs help. Word travels fast," Isaac muttered. "This is a small town, dear, and we look after our own." That man who came through, asking his questions with that mean look in his eye, he did not fool anyone. Half the town told him they had not seen hide nor hair of any woman. She came around the counter, all business now. "Now, let me see. I have a lovely blue dress that just came in. It would need to be taken in quite a bit, but I could have it ready by tomorrow morning if I work on it tonight." "That would be wonderful, Mrs. Henderson. Thank you." The older woman patted his arm. "You are doing a good thing, Isaac. That girl is lucky to have found you." Isaac was not sure about that, but he appreciated the sentiment. He paid for the dress and a few other supplies, then headed back to the ranch, his mind racing with everything that needed to be done. When he arrived home, he found Fiona in the kitchen, kneading bread dough with fierce concentration. She looked up when he entered, her eyes anxious. "How did it go?" "The wedding is tomorrow at noon," Isaac said, hanging up his coat. The Reverend was very understanding, and Mrs. Henderson at the general store is altering a dress for you. Fiona's hands stilled in the dough. "Tomorrow, so soon?" "Too soon?" Isaac asked, suddenly worried. "We can wait if you need more time." "No," Fiona said quickly. "No, soon is good, before I lose my courage." Isaac walked over to the table and sat down. "Fiona, you can still change your mind. Right up until the moment we say our vows, you can walk away. I will not hold it against you." Fiona looked at him, her dark eyes soft. "You really mean that, do not you? Every word." She went back to kneading the dough, a small smile on her face. "You are a strange man, Isaac Morrison, but I think you might be the best man I have ever met." That evening they sat by the fire and talked about practical matters. Fiona would take Isaac's last name, becoming Fiona Morrison. They would present themselves as a couple who had married quickly after meeting, not unusual in a place where women were scarce and life was uncertain. If anyone asked about her past, she would say she was from Kansas, where Isaac's family lived. It was close enough to the truth to be believable. "What about your family?" Isaac asked. "Your parents and sisters in Boston, will you want to contact them?" Fiona's expression became complicated. "Eventually, perhaps, but not yet. They encouraged me to marry Gerald. They made it clear that my duty was to stay with him no matter what. I think they need time to understand what they sent me into, and I need time before I can forgive them." "That is fair," Isaac said. "When you are ready, we can write to them together." The next morning, Isaac rose early and did his chores, then washed and dressed in his best clothes. They were simple, a clean white shirt and dark pants, but they were the best he had. When he came back inside, Fiona was waiting in the blue dress Mrs. Henderson had altered. It fit her beautifully, bringing out the color of her eyes and making her look like something out of a dream. "You look beautiful," Isaac said, the words coming out before he could stop them. Fiona blushed, touching the fabric self-consciously. "Mrs. Henderson did a wonderful job. It fits perfectly." They rode into town together in Isaac's wagon, the silence between them comfortable rather than awkward. When they arrived at the church, they found Reverend Collins waiting along with Tom Hendricks and his wife Martha, and Mrs. Henderson from the general store. All had agreed to serve as witnesses. The ceremony was simple and quick. Isaac and Fiona stood before the Reverend and repeated the traditional vows. When it came time for Isaac to place the ring on Fiona's finger, he pulled out a simple gold band that had belonged to his grandmother. His mother had sent it to him months ago, saying she wanted him to have it for when he found the right woman. "With this ring I thee wed," Isaac said, sliding it onto Fiona's finger. His hand was steady, but his heart was pounding. Fiona looked down at the ring, tears shining in her eyes. When she looked back up at Isaac, she smiled through her tears and repeated her own vows in a clear, strong voice. "I now pronounce you man and wife," Reverend Collins said with a warm smile. "Isaac, you may kiss your bride." Isaac hesitated, looking at Fiona for permission. She gave a tiny nod and he leaned in to press a gentle, chaste kiss to her lips. It was brief, barely more than a brush of mouths, but Isaac felt it all the way to his toes. After they had signed the marriage certificate and accepted congratulations from their witnesses, Tom pulled Isaac aside. "Her husband, the one from Denver, he will not be able to do anything now. Legally, she is your wife, but that does not mean he will not try to make trouble." "I know," Isaac said. "I am prepared for that. If he comes back, you send word. There are men in this town who will stand with you." Isaac gripped Tom's hand firmly. "Thank you. That means more than you know." The ride back to the ranch was quiet. Fiona sat beside Isaac on the wagon bench, the marriage certificate carefully tucked into her pocket, her new wedding ring catching the sunlight. She kept touching it as if to reassure herself it was real. "Are you all right?" Isaac asked. "I think so," Fiona said slowly. "It is strange. This morning I was Fiona Walsh, running from a terrible husband. Now I am Fiona Morrison, married to a kind man I barely know. My life has changed completely in the span of 4 days." "Do you regret it?" "No," Fiona said immediately. "I am terrified and uncertain about so many things, but I do not regret this. You have given me something I thought I would never have again: hope." When they arrived home, Isaac carried in the few supplies he had picked up in town while Fiona put on water for tea. They moved around each other with an ease that should not have been possible for two people who had just married as strangers, but somehow it worked. That evening, they shared a celebratory dinner of roast chicken and vegetables. Fiona had found a bottle of wine in Isaac's pantry, a gift from a neighbor he had never opened, and they toasted to new beginnings. The wine loosened their tongues, and they talked long into the night, sharing stories from their pasts, their hopes for the future. "I always wanted to have a library," Fiona confessed, her cheeks pink from the wine. "A whole room just for books. Is that foolish?" "Not at all," Isaac said. "When I build the addition onto the house next year, we can make sure there is a room for your books." Fiona looked at him with such warmth that Isaac's breath caught. "You would do that, of course. This is your home now, Fiona. I want you to be happy here." She reached across the table and took his hand, squeezing it gently. "Thank you, Isaac, for everything." As the days turned into weeks, Isaac and Fiona fell into a comfortable routine. She proved to be an excellent cook and took over most of the kitchen duties with enthusiasm. Isaac taught her how to care for the chickens and how to milk the cow. They worked together on the ranch chores, talking and laughing as they went about their tasks. At night, they would sit by the fire and read together, or play checkers, or simply talk. Isaac found himself looking forward to these quiet evenings more than anything else. He loved hearing Fiona's thoughts on everything from politics to philosophy to the best way to make biscuits. She was intelligent and funny, with a sharp wit that caught him off guard sometimes. Slowly, Fiona began to relax. The hunted look left her eyes and she smiled more often. She started to put on a little weight, losing the gaunt, half-starved appearance she had when Isaac first found her. Color came back to her cheeks, and her hair grew shinier, healthier. One evening, about 6 weeks after their wedding, Isaac came in from the barn to find Fiona dancing around the kitchen, humming to herself as she stirred something on the stove. She looked so happy, so carefree that Isaac just stood in the doorway watching her, his heart full. She turned and saw him, her face breaking into a radiant smile. "I did not hear you come in. I hope you are hungry. I tried a new recipe for stew." "I am always hungry," Isaac said, returning her smile, "especially when you are cooking." They ate dinner together, and afterward, Fiona brought out a sheet of paper covered in her neat handwriting. "I have been thinking about writing to my family," she said. "I thought you could help me decide what to say." They spent the evening drafting a letter to Fiona's parents and sisters. It was carefully worded, explaining that she had left Gerald because of his cruelty, that she was now remarried to a good man and living in Wyoming territory. She made it clear that she was safe and happy, but she also did not hide her hurt at their encouragement of her first marriage. "Do you think I am being too harsh?" Fiona asked, reading over the letter again. "I think you are being honest," Isaac said. "That is never wrong." They mailed the letter the next time they went into town. Fiona also posted a letter to the courthouse in Denver, formally notifying them of her new marriage and requesting that her marriage to Gerald Thornton be annulled on the grounds of cruelty. Isaac had consulted with a lawyer in Cheyenne, who had assured him that, while it would be a difficult process, it was possible, especially with witnesses willing to testify to Fiona's injuries and fear when she had arrived in White Pine. Spring came early that year, melting the snow and bringing new life to the ranch. Fiona planted a garden, carefully tending the seeds until green shoots began to push through the soil. She sang while she worked, old songs from her childhood, and Isaac found excuses to work near the garden just so he could hear her voice. One warm April afternoon, Isaac was mending a fence when he saw a rider approaching in the distance. His hand moved automatically to his rifle, but as the rider drew closer, he relaxed slightly. It was a woman, riding side saddle on a pretty chestnut mare. Fiona came out of the house, shading her eyes against the sun. "Are we expecting company?" "Not that I know of," Isaac said, setting down his tools and moving to stand beside her. The woman dismounted gracefully and removed her riding hat, revealing auburn hair pinned up in an elegant style. She was perhaps 30, with sharp green eyes and an air of authority about her. "Good afternoon," she said pleasantly. "I am looking for Mrs. Fiona Morrison." Fiona stepped forward, her chin raised. "I am Fiona Morrison." The woman's expression softened slightly. "My name is Catherine Winters. I am an attorney from Cheyenne. I have been hired by your family in Boston to ensure you are well." Isaac tensed, moving closer to Fiona protectively. "Hired by her family, or by Gerald Thornton?" "By her family," Catherine assured them. "Specifically by her eldest sister, Margaret. She received your letter and was concerned about your welfare. She wanted an independent party to verify that you were safe and that your marriage to Mr. Morrison was entered into freely." Fiona's eyes widened. "Margaret hired you, but how could she afford an attorney?" "She used money from a trust your grandmother left her," Catherine explained. "She said she should have used it to help you escape your first marriage, and this was the least she could do now." "Would you like to come inside?" Fiona asked, her voice shaking slightly. "We can talk more comfortably there." Over tea and fresh cookies, Catherine asked Fiona a series of questions about her marriage to Isaac, her life on the ranch, and her plans for the future. She asked to see Fiona's arms and confirmed the fading bruises and rope marks. She spoke with Isaac privately, asking him about his intentions and his understanding of the marriage. Finally, she set down her teacup and smiled. "I have seen all I need to see. Mrs. Morrison, I will be writing to your sister to assure her that you are well cared for and happy. I will also be filing a formal complaint against Gerald Thornton with the territorial court, documenting his abuse. It may not result in criminal charges, unfortunately, but it will create a legal record that will support your annulment petition." "Thank you," Fiona said, her voice thick with emotion. "Please tell Margaret that I appreciate what she has done. Tell her that I forgive her and I hope we can correspond regularly." Catherine nodded. "I will, and Mrs. Morrison, if you ever need legal assistance, please do not hesitate to contact my office in Cheyenne. What you have done, leaving an abusive marriage and building a new life, takes tremendous courage. You should be proud of yourself." After Catherine left, Fiona broke down in tears. Isaac held her while she cried, saying nothing, just offering his solid presence and comfort. When her tears finally subsided, she looked up at him with red-rimmed eyes. "She called me courageous," Fiona said wonderingly, "but I do not feel brave. I feel like I have been running and hiding." "You survived," Isaac said firmly. "You did what you needed to do to stay alive. That is the bravest thing anyone can do." Summer arrived with its usual intensity, bringing long hot days and warm nights. The garden flourished under Fiona's care, providing fresh vegetables for their table. Isaac's cattle fattened on the rich grass, and he was able to sell several head at a good price, bringing in much-needed income for the ranch. On Fiona's birthday in July, Isaac surprised her with a gift. It was a small bookshelf he had built himself, already filled with a dozen books he had ordered from a catalog. Fiona cried when she saw it, then threw her arms around Isaac's neck in an impulsive hug. "This is the most thoughtful gift anyone has ever given me," she said against his shoulder. Isaac wrapped his arms around her, breathing in the scent of her hair like sunshine and lavender. "It is just the start of your library. We will fill that room I promised you, one book at a time." Fiona pulled back slightly, looking up at him. Her eyes were soft, her lips slightly parted. Isaac felt his heart hammering in his chest. The attraction he felt for his wife had been growing steadily over the months, but he had kept it carefully controlled, never wanting to pressure her or make her uncomfortable. But now, seeing the way she was looking at him, he wondered if maybe she felt something too. "Isaac," Fiona whispered, "I know we said this marriage would be in name only, but I have been thinking lately that maybe, if you wanted, we could." She trailed off, her cheeks flushing pink. Isaac cupped her face gently in his hands, giving her every opportunity to pull away. "What do you want, Fiona? Tell me what you want." "I want this to be a real marriage," she said, her voice gaining strength. "I want you to be my husband in every way. I want to build a real life with you, not just a pretend one." Isaac's heart soared, but he forced himself to ask, "Are you sure? I do not want you to feel obligated or pressured." "I have never been more sure of anything," Fiona said. She stood on her toes and kissed him, not the brief, chaste kiss they had shared at their wedding, but a real kiss, full of promise and possibility. Isaac kissed her back, pouring months of restrained longing into it. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against hers. "I have wanted to do that since the day you smiled at me over that first game of checkers," he admitted. "I have wanted you to do it since the day you gave me your only blanket and promised I was safe," Fiona replied. That night, their marriage became real in every sense of the word. Isaac was patient and gentle, and Fiona was brave and trusting. When they finally fell asleep in each other's arms, both knew that what had started as a marriage of convenience had become something infinitely more precious. The next morning, Isaac woke to find Fiona still asleep beside him, her dark hair spread across the pillow, a peaceful expression on her face. He carefully brushed a strand of hair from her cheek, marveling at how his life had changed. A year ago, he had been alone on this ranch, content but lonely. Now he had a wife he loved deeply, and a future that looked brighter than anything he had dared to imagine. Fiona's eyes fluttered open, and she smiled when she saw him watching her. "Good morning, husband." "Good morning, wife," Isaac replied, kissing her softly. Over the following months, their love deepened and grew. They became true partners in every sense, working together on the ranch, making decisions together, building their life together. Fiona's annulment was granted in September, the judge citing evidence of cruelty and coercion. When the papers arrived in the mail, Fiona and Isaac burned them in the fireplace, watching the past literally go up in smoke. News reached them through Tom Hendricks that Gerald Thornton had tried to make trouble, claiming Isaac had stolen his wife. But with the annulment granted, and multiple witnesses in White Pine willing to testify to Fiona's injuries and fear, his complaints went nowhere. Eventually, he gave up and focused his attention elsewhere. He remarried within 6 months, and Fiona sent up a prayer for his new wife's safety. In December, on a snowy evening much like the night Isaac had first found Fiona, she told him she was pregnant. Isaac lifted her off her feet and spun her around, both of them laughing with joy. They had hoped for a child but had not expected it to happen so quickly. "We are going to be parents," Fiona said wonderingly, placing a hand on her still flat stomach. "I am going to be a mother." "You are going to be an amazing mother," Isaac said, kneeling in front of her and kissing her belly gently. "And I am going to do everything in my power to be a good father." The pregnancy was difficult at times. Fiona suffered from terrible morning sickness in the first months, and Isaac would hold her hair back and rub her back, wishing he could take the discomfort away. But as she entered the second trimester, she bloomed, her face glowing with health and happiness. Isaac built a cradle from smooth pine wood, carving intricate designs into the headboard. Fiona sewed tiny clothes and blankets, her face soft with contentment as she worked. They argued playfully about names, each suggesting increasingly ridiculous options until they were both laughing too hard to continue. Letters arrived regularly from Fiona's family now. Her sister Margaret wrote long letters full of apologies and love, asking detailed questions about Fiona's new life. Her other sisters wrote too, and eventually even her parents sent a stiff but sincere letter expressing their regrets and asking for forgiveness. Fiona wrote back, extending the forgiveness they sought, though she made it clear that trust would have to be rebuilt over time. Isaac's family was equally delighted by the news of the baby. His mother sent a package of family christening gowns and bonnets, along with a letter expressing her joy that Isaac had found happiness. His sister wrote separately, saying how glad she was that Isaac had found someone who made him happy, someone who understood the importance of safety and kindness in a marriage. On a warm August evening in 1884, after hours of labor, Fiona gave birth to a healthy baby boy. Isaac was there throughout, holding her hand, whispering encouragement, wiping her brow with a cool cloth. When the midwife finally placed the squalling infant in Fiona's arms, both parents wept with joy. "He is perfect," Fiona said, counting tiny fingers and toes. "Absolutely perfect." "What should we call him?" Isaac asked, gently touching his son's downy soft hair. Fiona looked up at her husband, the man who had saved her life in so many ways. "What about Thomas after Tom Hendricks? If it were not for him warning us and standing by us, I might not be here now." "Thomas Morrison," Isaac said, testing the name. "I like it. Tom will be honored." Little Thomas thrived, growing chubby and happy under his parents' devoted care. Tom and Martha Hendricks became his godparents, and the whole community of White Pine seemed to take joy in the baby's arrival. Neighbors brought gifts and food, offering congratulations and advice. As Thomas grew from infant to toddler, the ranch grew too. Isaac was able to purchase more land and expand his herd. Fiona's garden became legendary in the area, producing abundant vegetables that she canned and preserved, selling the excess at the general store. She also began teaching reading lessons to some of the children in the area whose families lived too far from town to attend school regularly. On Thomas's second birthday, Fiona told Isaac she was pregnant again. This time, the pregnancy was easier, and in the spring of 1887 they welcomed a daughter they named Catherine, after the attorney who had helped secure Fiona's freedom. Catherine was a calm, happy baby with her mother's dark eyes and her father's stubborn chin. Life settled into a peaceful rhythm. The ranch prospered, the children grew healthy and strong, and Isaac and Fiona's love deepened with each passing year. They never forgot how they had started, with Fiona shaking from cold and fear in Isaac's barn, but those dark memories only made them appreciate their happiness more. On their 5th wedding anniversary, Isaac surprised Fiona by showing her the completed library room. It was a beautiful space with floor-to-ceiling shelves, a comfortable reading chair by the window, and a small desk where Fiona could write letters or work on the lessons she prepared for her students. "Isaac, it is wonderful," Fiona breathed, running her hand along the smooth wood of the shelves. "It is everything I dreamed of. You deserve all your dreams to come true," Isaac said, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "You have made all of mine come true." Fiona turned in his arms, reaching up to touch his face tenderly. "Do you remember what you said to me that first night? You said strength was about being terrified and doing what needed to be done anyway." "I remember." "You gave me the courage to be strong," Fiona said. "You gave me a reason to keep fighting, to keep hoping. You gave me a life worth living." "You gave me the same," Isaac said. "Before you, I was just existing, going through the motions. You brought joy and laughter and love into my life. You made this house a home." They kissed, a slow, sweet kiss that held all the love and promise of their years together. The years continued to pass peacefully. Thomas grew into a thoughtful, hard-working boy who loved helping his father with the ranch. Catherine was bright and curious, always asking questions and wanting to know how everything worked. In 1890, Fiona gave birth to twins, a boy and a girl they named Samuel and Grace. The ranch house rang with children's laughter and the organized chaos of a growing family. Fiona maintained her correspondence with her sisters, and in the summer of 1891, Margaret came to visit with her husband and 2 daughters. It was an emotional reunion, with tears and apologies and forgiveness freely given. Margaret and Fiona spent hours talking, healing old wounds and building a new, stronger relationship. "I am so sorry I did not see what was happening with Gerald," Margaret said one evening as they sat on the porch watching the children play. "I should have protected you better." "You could not have known," Fiona said gently. "I barely knew myself until it was too late. But you helped me when it mattered most. You hired Catherine, and that made all the difference." "You seem so happy here," Margaret observed. "So different from the scared, subdued girl I remember from your first wedding." "I am happy," Fiona said simply. "Isaac gave me space to heal, patience to find myself again, and love that asked for nothing but allowed everything. He saved my life, Margaret, not just by taking me in during that storm, but by showing me what love should really look like." By 1895, the Morrison Ranch was one of the most successful in the area. Isaac had built a larger barn and expanded the house twice more to accommodate their growing family. Fiona had established a small school on their property, teaching not just her own children, but also the children of neighbors who lived too far from town. She was respected and loved in the community, known for her kindness and her sharp intelligence. Thomas, now 11, was already showing signs of the man he would become. He was responsible and steady, with his father's quiet strength and his mother's compassionate heart. Catherine, at 8, was a force of nature, always organizing the younger children into elaborate games and projects. The twins, now 5, were inseparable and kept everyone on their toes with their boundless energy. On a warm September evening, the whole family gathered on the porch to watch the sunset. Isaac sat in his rocking chair with Grace on his lap, while Fiona sat beside him with Samuel leaning against her. Thomas and Catherine sprawled on the porch steps, arguing good-naturedly about something inconsequential. "Papa," Grace asked, playing with Isaac's calloused hands, "tell us again how you and Mama met." Isaac and Fiona exchanged a smile. They had told this story many times, though they edited it for younger ears, leaving out the worst of Fiona's experiences with Gerald. "Well," Isaac began, "it was a terrible blizzard, the worst Wyoming had seen in years. I went out to check on the animals in the barn, and there I found the most beautiful woman I had ever seen, shaking from the cold." "And you gave her your only blanket," Catherine chimed in, having heard the story many times. "I did," Isaac confirmed. "Because when you find someone who needs help, you do not hesitate, you just help." "And then you fell in love?" Grace asked hopefully. "Not right away," Fiona said, smoothing her daughter's hair. "First we became friends, we talked and laughed and learned about each other. The love came later, growing slowly and surely until one day we realized we could not imagine life without each other." "That is the best kind of love," Isaac added, reaching over to take Fiona's hand. "The kind that builds slowly on a foundation of friendship and respect and trust." Thomas looked back at his parents, his young face serious. "Is that why you always tell us to be kind to everyone? Because you never know when you might be helping someone who really needs it?" "Exactly," Isaac said. Your mother taught me that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is accept help when you need it. And I taught her that sometimes the most important thing you can do is offer help without expecting anything in return. We taught each other a lot of things, Fiona said softly, her eyes on her husband's face. We are still teaching each other every day. As the sun set over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, the Morrison family sat together in comfortable silence. They were a family built on second chances and unexpected blessings, on courage in the face of fear and love that conquered all obstacles. Fiona thought back to that terrified woman shaking in the barn, certain she was going to die or worse. She would never have believed then that she would find not just safety, but true happiness. She would never have imagined having a loving husband, beautiful children, a home filled with laughter and love. Isaac looked at his wife and saw not the broken, frightened woman he had found that snowy night, but the strong, confident woman she had become. He saw his partner, his love, the mother of his children, his best friend. He saw his future, bright and full of promise. "I love you," he said quietly, for her ears only. "I love you too," Fiona replied, squeezing his hand. "Thank you for wrapping me in your blanket that night. Thank you for giving me warmth when I had only known cold." "Thank you for staying," Isaac said. "Thank you for building this life with me." As stars began to appear in the darkening sky, they sat together, their children around them, secure in the knowledge that they had found something rare and precious. They had found each other, and in doing so, they had found home. The years continued to unfold with a gentle rhythm. Thomas grew into a fine young man, eventually taking over more responsibilities on the ranch. Catherine discovered a talent for teaching and began helping her mother with the school. The twins developed their own distinct personalities, Samuel becoming interested in engineering and building while Grace showed a remarkable talent for music. In 1902, Margaret's daughter Emily came to live with the Morrisons for a year, wanting to experience life in the West. She and Catherine became close friends, and the house rang with their laughter and whispered confidences. Emily returned to Boston with stories of wide open spaces, real cowboys, and a family bound together by love rather than obligation. By 1905, Thomas was courting a sweet girl from town named Anna, daughter of the general store owners. Isaac and Fiona approved heartily, seeing in the young couple the same foundation of friendship and respect that had made their own marriage so strong. They married in the spring of 1906, and by 1907, Isaac and Fiona became grandparents to a baby girl named Fiona, after her grandmother. Holding her tiny namesake, Fiona was overcome with emotion. "I never thought I would live to see this day," she said to Isaac that evening as they prepared for bed. "When I was running from Gerald, I thought my life was over. I thought I would never know peace or happiness again." "But you did," Isaac said, wrapping his arms around her. "You found the courage to keep going, even when everything seemed hopeless, and look at what you have built. Look at the family we have created together." "We created it together," Fiona corrected. "I could not have done any of this without you." Over the years, they had received occasional news about Gerald Thornton. He had remarried and divorced twice more, each time the marriages ending badly. He had lost much of his wealth to bad investments and gambling debts. In 1908, they learned he had died of a heart attack at age 52. Alone and largely unmourned, Fiona felt a complicated mix of emotions at the news. Relief that he could never hurt anyone else, sadness for the waste of a life, gratitude that she had escaped when she did. Isaac held her while she processed her feelings, offering silent support and understanding. "He could not touch the life we have built," Fiona said finally. "He tried to destroy me, but instead, he drove me to you. In a strange way, his cruelty led me to the greatest happiness I have ever known. By 1910, the Morrison Ranch was a thriving enterprise spanning several hundred acres. All 4 of their children had grown into capable, kind adults. Thomas and Anna had 3 children and were managing most of the day-to-day operations of the ranch. Catherine had opened her own school in White Pine, teaching children from all over the county. Samuel had gone to university to study engineering and was designing irrigation systems for ranches across Wyoming. Grace had married a musician and was teaching piano in Cheyenne. Isaac and Fiona, now in their late 40s, had slowed down a bit, content to let the younger generation take the lead while they enjoyed their grandchildren and each other's company. They had built a small cottage on the property where they lived, leaving the main house to Thomas and his growing family. On a cool evening in October 1910, 27 years after Isaac had found Fiona in his barn, they sat together on the porch of their cottage, wrapped in the same wool blanket Isaac had given Fiona that long-ago night. The blanket was threadbare now, carefully mended in several places, but neither of them could bear to part with it. "You have any regrets?" Fiona asked, leaning her head against Isaac's shoulder. Isaac thought about it carefully. "Not a single one. Everything I have, everything I am led me to you. How could I regret that?" "I used to regret marrying Gerald," Fiona said. "I used to wish I could go back and change that decision. But now I realize that if I had not married him, I would never have run away. I would never have ended up in your barn during that blizzard. I would never have found you." "God works in mysterious ways," Isaac said. "He brought you to me in the middle of a storm, and you brought light and love and laughter into my life." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over the mountains they loved. In the distance, they could hear their grandchildren playing, their happy shouts carrying on the evening breeze. From the main house came the warm glow of lamplight and the smell of dinner cooking. "We built something good here," Fiona said. "Something that will last long after we are gone." "We did," Isaac agreed. "We built a family, a home, a legacy of love and kindness." As darkness fell and stars began to appear, Isaac and Fiona remained on the porch, wrapped in their old blanket, wrapped in each other's arms. They had started as strangers brought together by chance and necessity. They had become friends, then partners, then lovers. Now, after nearly 3 decades together, they were 2 halves of a whole, so intertwined that neither could imagine existence without the other. The blizzard that had brought them together was long past, but the warmth they had kindled that night had never faded. It had grown and spread, touching everyone around them, creating a family and a community built on the principles they held dear: kindness, courage, and love. As they finally rose to go inside, Isaac took Fiona's hand and raised it to his lips, kissing the knuckles that still bore his grandmother's ring. "Thank you for being brave enough to run into that storm," he said. "Thank you for stumbling into my barn and into my life." "Thank you for being the kind of man worth running to," Fiona replied. "Thank you for wrapping me in your blanket and giving me warmth when I had forgotten what it felt like to be warm." They walked inside together, closing the door on the cool night, secure in the knowledge that whatever storms might come, they would face them together. They had proven that love could bloom in the harshest conditions, that 2 broken people could heal each other and build something beautiful from the ruins of the past. Their story, which had begun with a woman shaking from cold and fear in a barn, had become a testament to the transformative power of compassion and love. It was a story they would tell their grandchildren and great-grandchildren, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, hope endures, and sometimes the worst storms lead us exactly where we need to be. As they settled into bed that night, still wrapped in each other's arms as they had been for 27 years, both Isaac and Fiona felt profound gratitude for the unexpected blessing they had found in each other. They had saved each other in that barn during the blizzard, and they continued to save each other every day through simple acts of love and kindness. Their love story, born of desperation and compassion, had grown into something far greater than either had imagined possible. It had created a family, built a community, and left a legacy that would endure for generations. And it had all started with a cowboy who did not hesitate to wrap a shaking, frightened woman in his only blanket, offering warmth and safety without asking for anything in return. That simple act of kindness had changed both their lives forever, transforming loneliness into companionship, fear into security, and strangers into soulmates. As they drifted off to sleep, their breathing synchronized, their hearts beating in harmony, they knew without doubt that they had found their happy ending, and it was more perfect than any fairy tale could ever be.